Semester number 1, lesson number 38. Our aim today is how did the Black Codes and Jim Crow laws prevent African Americans from truly experiencing freedom? And to begin today, I want you guys to take the literacy test, and we'll talk more about what that literacy test means after we take it. So today we're once again talking about Reconstruction, and today we're talking about the Black Codes and Jim Crow laws. And the first thing we're going to look at is African Americans. Were they really free? All right. And they were free, but they were broke. They had no money. They had come from slavery, so obviously they had nothing saved up. There was no money there. So a lot of them took to sharecropping. And sharecropping was when these African Americans became farmers who would work part of the land and give the landowners part of the harvest. So these African Americans, although they were free, quote unquote, they stayed on the same land that they were once slaves on, and they farmed that land, and in return they gave the landowners part of the harvest. Many Southerners were stuck. Many Southern ex-slaves were stuck working in the fields for former slave owners. And then the concept is at least they can vote. And we learned yesterday that the 15th Amendment gave them the right to vote, right? Gave African Americans the right to vote. But could they truly vote? And not 100% true, right? There was ways to prevent them from voting, especially in the South where they wanted to make sure that African Americans were, kept below the white Southerners. They found ways around the amendment. They added a poll tax and a poll test, which required a payment in order to vote. And since African Americans were mostly poor, they usually could not afford this poll tax to vote. There was also the grandfather clause, which said you could only vote if your grandfather voted. And obviously, most of these African Americans in the South, their grandfathers didn't vote because their grandfathers were slaves and did not have the right to vote, right? So therefore, this was a way around that. And the third thing was a literacy test, which required a certain reading ability before being able to vote. And African Americans, for the most part, could not read. Therefore, they had trouble, they had difficulty with this test, and therefore they didn't pass it and could not vote. And we'll talk more about that in class. These are just some examples of poll tests, and some of them are really ridiculous. Some asked voters to correctly guess the number of cotton balls in a jar before they were allowed to vote. Others asked voters to guess the number of bubbles in a bar of soap. These are incredibly ridiculous requests, but this was a way to keep the African Americans from voting. All right. So Black Codes and Jim Crow laws. These were ways to prevent African Americans from having equal rights. The Black Codes were during Reconstruction, and they were used by all former slave states. All of the Confederacy used these. And these denied them the rights to testify against whites, to serve on juries or in state militias, or to vote and express legal concern publicly. So even though they were quote unquote equal, they did not have the same rights as white people. And Jim Crow laws, which were after Reconstruction, segregated public places such as schools, restaurants, etc. And on the right here we have, a perfect example of somewhere in the South, and just, we wash for white people only, and that speaks volumes about the divide that still existed in the South at this time. And we're going to take some of your questions. And our check for understanding today. Following the Civil War, many Southern states enacted Black Codes to A, provide free farmland for African Americans, B, guarantee equal civil rights for African Americans, C, restrict the rights of formerly enslaved persons, or D, support the creation of the Freedmen's Bureau. And we'll go over that question tomorrow in class. And our assignment today, you're going to complete the literacy test, and after answering all 17 questions, make sure to answer the response at the bottom of the page. Between the test shown and the Louisiana literacy test, which was your due now, do you believe these examinations were fair? Who did they favor? And please explain in detail. We'll go over that tomorrow in class. Have a good night.